Hey, podcast audience. Hope you're all doing well out there. If you're an actor, hope you're getting those auditions and callbacks that you're looking for. If you are employed in some other way, hope work is going well for you as well. I have a great interview today with Libbie Baylinson. She's super fun to talk to and super energetic, which was a really enjoyable interview. One of the things she talks about is a reality show that she applied for. And it's kind of interesting because I recently applied for a reality show as well and didn't get it. I completely blew the phone screen. So I'm going to tell you this in the hopes that should you ever be in a situation like this, that you will learn from my mistakes. So the thing with reality shows, especially like these Survivor type shows or these group competition shows, what they want is conflict, right? I mean, that's what makes good television. You think of the people that get the most airtime on the shows are the ones who create the most conflict. Think of the first season of Survivor or any of the subsequent seasons. Usually it's the one who lies and cheats and kind of works the way to win it at the very end. And that's what they want to see. So I went into this thinking of it like your regular job interview, which is completely different. You answer those questions about like, oh, this is how I try to avoid conflict. What are your areas of improvement? Oh, well, this is, my area of improvement, but it makes me a better person because of this. And, it's all about working well with others and working in team environments. But with these kind of shows, they don't want that. They want you to not work well with and not work in team environments. And that's kind of basically how I blew it. And I was answering all the questions from the point of view of like, oh yeah, so if I was in a situation where the group was doing something I didn't agree with, I would try to work with them to come to a common resolution. No. They don't want that. They'd be like, I'd call out the person in the group I disagree with most, and I'd tell them why they're wrong and that kind of stuff because it makes good television. So I think it's safe to say the reason why I haven't heard back from them is, of course, because I answered those questions completely wrong, and I'm still kicking myself for it days later. And it was funny because like one of the questions was like, would you lie and cheat to win the prize? And I was like, oh, well, of course I wouldn't lie and cheat because that's wrong and da-da-da-da-da. Ugh, idiot. That is me. And that's my story about the one time that I got a call about going on a reality television show. Blew it. Anyway, hopefully Libbie will get a call back on the one that she applied for and will make it, and hopefully she will do well. Either way, you as an audience member will really enjoy my discussion with her today. So please, enjoy. Welcome to Diary of an Unemployed Actor with me, Milo Dennison. Today I am joined by the actress Libbie Baylinson. Thank you for being on the show. All right, I love that enthusiasm. That's fantastic. Like you're already like, hello, I'm ready to talk.
I'll be quiet.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like some people, I introduce them and they just kind of sit there for a second and they're like, hey, yeah. I'm like, okay, great.
I was always getting in trouble in high school, just talking out of turn and always talking when the teacher was talking. And I was just like, but I just have so much to say.
You're like, why don't you want to listen to me? Then you chose the correct profession.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are mostly a theater actress. Is that correct? Theater and voiceover work, or do you do much film?
Yeah. No, I have not done any film as of yet. I did not catch the theater bug until about 4 years ago when I decided to move to Florida. When I grew up, I didn't have a theater, in my neighborhood or anything. We just had our high school plays, and I got a couple little roles here and there. But when I moved to Florida, I auditioned for a play called To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of on a whim. I auditioned for it, and then all of a sudden I got the part of Mayella, who was like one of the leads in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. But, I learned the script and I started going to rehearsals and I was like, wow, this is something else. I love this. I just felt so happy and so at home. And it all started there. And then after that, every play that I auditioned for, I got, at least a decent part. And all throughout that, I started realizing how much I love theater, and I started getting into voiceover work a little bit, and I realized I love that even more. Like I just love them both so much. So within the last 4 years or so is when I really started doing all these little projects here and there. And it just is awesome. I love it.
Nice. And there's a decent amount of theater work because it's funny because you're from New York, but you live in Florida. And when I think theater, I think New York. I don't necessarily think Florida.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm from the East End of Long Island.
Hmm.
So when people think of New York, they of course think of New York City, but New York City is such a small, tiny little part of New York. And that, of course, is where there's all these Broadway shows and theaters and stuff like that. But where I come from, a town called East Hampton, way on the east end of Long Island, there just wasn't really any community theaters or anything to audition for. There just wasn't really anything like that out there. So I really didn't realize what I was missing until I moved down here. And there's so many theaters near me now. I've done a couple plays at a bunch of different theaters here. And it's kind of interesting because, yeah, everyone would think that if you're from New York, you would be surrounded by it more, but it was the opposite for me.
Well, Long Island, to my correct me if I'm wrong here, but Long Island is much larger than people think it is.
Yes, Long Island should be its own state.
Yeah, okay. That's what I
But
thought.
we've got nowhere to put that extra star on the flag, so I guess it's just going to be part of New York.
Yeah, it would throw the symmetry of the flag off.
Exactly.
Well, you definitely have a great voice from the sound. Like it's a very like kind of a soft, like nice voice. So I can see why you got into voiceover work, or I can hear why you got into voiceover work.
Well, thank you very much.
Was that just somebody heard your voice and were like, "Hey, do you want to do a character," or was that kind of a conscious thought on your part?
You know, it's so funny. People ask me that a lot. I was hanging out with my friend Tasha one day, and we go back and forth doing these silly voices, just being ridiculous with one another. And I did this one voice, and she was like, "Wait, what is that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "What are you doing? Who are you pretending to be?" I was like, "Nobody. That's just like a silly voice I do." And she just started saying like, "Oh my gosh, like it literally sounds like a cartoon voice, and like you should do that." So I was like, "All right, I'll look into it." And I started looking into voiceover work and just different things that you can do with different character voices. And I started on an app called Star Now, which is how I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And I started just putting myself out there saying like, "Hey, I like voiceover work." I really didn't know much about it. And the first thing I got cast in was this a company called Fool's Gold Productions. And this girl, she does a Supernatural, like the TV show Supernatural,
Mm-hmm.
a voiceover podcast where she takes episodes of Supernatural, she casts people in them, and then we literally just reenact them using just our voices. And she cast me in that, and I started doing that where I got to kind of just use my own voice, and I got to be really scared and do some screams and stuff like that. And I was like, "Ooh, I like this." And then I got cast in another one where I was a narrator for a climate change video. And I really liked that. And then it like from there, the more projects I did, the more I realized like, oh my gosh, I really like this. So I started making a demo reel and it was just like a random, thing by my friend. She was like, "Yeah, I really like your cartoon voice. Like you should do something with that." I was like, "All right, I guess I will."
So when you got that first part, did you have a demo reel? Like, did they have you, how did you actually, because I imagine if you found it through Star Now, they'd be like, what do you sound like? Or give me a demo or something.
Right. Right. I didn't even know if it was like something I could do. You know what I mean? Like when you think of that kind of stuff, you think it's so professional and someone who knows what they're doing. But for me, I literally was like, "Hey, like I have a voice, like hear me out." And it was an audition. This girl emailed me and she said, "I would love for you to audition for a role of a character named Kara. She's a 25-year-old female, blah, 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 blah." She explained the character to me, and it pretty much was exactly who I am in real life. So I just she sent me a little snippet of the script, and I sent her an audition, and she was like, "That is exactly what I'm looking for." So that is how she cast me. And same with the other things that I've been cast in. And it was just one of those things by my profile picture and by my biography. They gave me the chance to audition, and I got it. And of course, there was a few that I didn't get, but we're not going to talk about those.
Of course not. Clearly they were miscast.
Yeah. I'm not going to take any offense to that. It's, you can't get every role that you want, but
Yeah,
the
nature
ones
of the
that I have
business.
gotten, I think were really, really fun to do.
Did you record those in a studio or record them at home and then send them in?
I recorded them at home. The first few that I did, I actually just recorded from my Mac, like just from the speaker that's in the Mac. And then once I
Wow.
realized this was something I liked to do and I wanted to continue to do, for Christmas, my mom was like, "What do you want? What do you want?" And usually I'd say nothing, don't spend your money on me. But a couple years ago, I was like, "I want a microphone." I was like, they're expensive. You can get it for me. And she ended up buying me a little pseudo-tac microphone that I can plug into my Mac, which I'm using right now. And it's really easy. I can just do all these little projects just from my Mac. I don't have a studio per se, but I do have a little nook in my room that's quieter than the other rooms in the house. So I just kind of set up camp here.
So you don't record in your closet like some people do?
My closets are very small, so it wouldn't be very comfortable.
Do you edit any of your own stuff, or have you done any of that, or are you able to
That's
just
a
kind
good
of send it off and let
question.
them edit it?
Yeah, I actually learned how to edit it myself using GarageBand, again, just from my MacBook. There was I had to send an audition of a song of me singing, which, I'm not really a singer. I like singing and I enjoy singing, and I think I could be a really good background singer, but I'm not really a lead kind of girl. But someone asked me to send them an audition, so I did. Um, and with the way that I had to do it, I had to kind of move some things around. So I tried to use GarageBand, and I just took a couple days and played around with it, and now it's like so easy to use and it's so easy to edit, and I literally just kind of taught myself by playing around with it. So I do everything just from my Mac.
Is GarageBand free? I've never actually used it.
Yeah, no, it was free. I'd never used it before. Before I was like, I had to move some stuff around with the way that I was singing, and I just kind of played around with it, and it was pretty easy to use. It's kind of fun to use actually. So
And that's right, because sorry, and I was thinking Audacity, which is the other one I use, but Audacity is not available on a Mac, which is why that makes sense.
oh
Sorry, it just dawned on me. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
I'm sure
So
super relevant random thought that popped into my head.
I haven't even heard of that. Yeah. The more that I get into voiceover acting, I would like to. I plan to. When this whole coronavirus thing is subsided a little bit, I plan to go out and get a professional demo reel made. But the one that I have some on my Instagram, and I made a new Instagram just dedicated to like my voiceover work, my
Mm.
theater work, because I like it so much. But I made one just using GarageBand with different little voices and accents that I do, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, how do you do that? And where'd you get that done?" And I was like, "I did that myself." I
Yeah,
just
that's
did it,
great.
every time that I was off, I was just playing around with it. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. It started out as a hobby, and now it's kind of, I'm getting paid for little jobs here and there. So it's been really fun. I like it.
That is every actor's dream. Started
Right?
out as a hobby, and now people are paying me for it.
Exactly. Yeah. I just thought it was kind of fun to get into, but it turns out I'm not too bad.
Yeah, well, and it's nice too because you don't necessarily have to always go in and do it. You can do it at home, or like you were saying that. So it makes it so much more convenient.
Exactly. I had a voiceover project for that girl for when I played Kara in the Supernatural voiceover podcast.
Mhm.
The day that she needed me to send it by, I was actually on my way to New York. Like I was taking a road trip. My sister was living in Ohio. So from Florida, I drove to Ohio, and from Ohio to New York. And it was like a week-long trip. And when I was in Ohio, I had to record it from my computer, but I was in my sister's apartment. And one of the lines that I had to do was to yell out and scream. And the other one was to yell out the word Sam, because I was screaming for a character named Sam. My sister's name is Sam. And I told her, I'm going to be in this room and I've got to do this and that. And so I start screaming, Sam, Sam. And she comes in the room. She's like, what? And I was like, no, I'm working. I was like, go away. You're ruining my recording. And she was like, what the heck?
Should have
You should.
clarified.
Yeah. She was like, I didn't realize you were going to be screaming. I was like, well, now I am. So please leave.
You're like, no, I have to start over, jerk.
Yeah. So
Did you ever watch that show? That show's been on for like 15 years or something like that. Yeah.
Supernatural. Yeah, there's a lot of episodes.
Mm.
There's a lot of episodes. I really liked it though. I started watching it because I found the main character Dean to be very cute. So I was
So
like,
I've
oh yeah,
heard.
I'll
So
watch
I've
this
heard.
show. But I
Yeah.
actually
Mhm.
really liked it. Yeah, I actually really liked it.
I never got into it. I watched a few episodes of it. It looks like a good show. And it
Hmm.
seems like the type of show I would watch, but yeah, I never got into it for some reason.
Yeah, I like those kinds of things. I like things about like zombies, supernatural, vampires, ghosts, all that
Mm,
kind of sci-fi kind of thing. I like that a lot.
yeah, yeah. Were you a Buffy fan then?
I was. I definitely was when I was younger when that show was on.
Yeah, me
I
too.
wanted to be her.
She's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was always on my like. People would ask me like, "What show do you watch that you're embarrassed that you watch?" And I'd be like, "Buffy." What's your guilty pleasure show?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, let's see. I'm not really a fan of reality TV, but there is a show called The Circle. Are you familiar with it?
I am not familiar with it at all.
I actually applied to be on it. It is like a reality TV show, game show, social media competition. It's literally a show where these people get cast in it and they all move into their own little apartment in this building. They all have their own place and they don't get to know each other personally. They get to know each other through this little social media app. So they can either play as themselves or they can play as somebody else and they can totally catfish the other people. And for 3 weeks, they film it and they talk all day, every day, through this app. They can send emojis. But then before they even get to know each other, they have to rank each other just based on their profiles. And the person who is the most popular or highest rated person gets to vote out or block whoever they want. And then they do these ratings all throughout the show where whoever basically the most popular two people are, get to block out somebody. And then at the very, very end, the winner gets $100,000.
Wow.
So that's a show I like. I discovered recently. My sister told me about it, and I've already watched it 3 times. And then I went on their website, and I spent like 3 or 4 hours applying to be on the show. And it was just that's like my guilty pleasure show, I think, because I'm not really a reality TV kind of girl, but definitely like that show.
And so did you hear back from them? Are they like, sorry, but we checked your social media profile and you're not popular enough?
Not yet. I actually only applied for it probably like 5 days ago.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure that with this virus going on, everything's kind of on hold. I'd like to think I'll at least get a little bit of a chance. I know that a lot of people have probably auditioned for it, so I know it's not a good chance, but at least I tried.
Wow, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's been fun.
Somebody messaged me actually once about a reality show here in London about going on it, and it was like a dating type reality show, and I never heard of it, so I watched it before I responded, and it was like all like super studly people in their like early 20s, and was just like, would you be interested in auditioning for this? And I'm like, and I responded with like, no, my abs are not even remotely that solid to be. And her response to me was like, that's okay. We accept people of all like body shape, sizes, and stuff like that. And like that makes me feel even worse.
That's awesome. It's actually this show, The Circle, I'm telling you about, is actually filmed in London.
Oh,
It's an
really?
American TV show, but it's at an apartment building in London, I found out. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
It's
Perfect.
it's very cool. Yeah.
Maybe they'd fly you over then. That's cool.
Exactly, right? I was like, pick me, pick me. At the end of my audition tape, I have a little bird named Lemmy. She's so cute. She's an all yellow parakeet. And I just had her in my hands and I was like, cast us. They're probably like, why is this girl so annoying?
Hey, that might work. It's those little things that set you apart.
Yeah, I would like to think so. But she's super, super cute.
So with finishing up on the voice, getting back to the voiceover and acting stuff,
Oh yeah, that's
do you
why
have
we're
any
here.
like kind of do you have any kind of like pre performance rituals and stuff like when it comes to being on stage or even with voiceover?
Yeah, actually I do. I am a huge, huge, huge fan of Ariana Grande. And I don't think that I can sing as well as her,
I
but I
have heard
sure
of Ariana
like to
Grande, so there you
try.
go.
Yeah. You might have heard of her once or twice. She's probably like the biggest pop star in America right now. She's amazing.
I know this person exists.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll take some of her songs that are a little difficult to sing, like a song called Dangerous Woman, God is a Woman, where she's kind of belting out those notes. And I will sing those numerous, numerous times before I do anything, just to kind of loosen up my vocal cords and stuff like that. And when I'm doing theater, you're going on stage in front of anywhere from 50 to like 300 people. So you definitely want to get into character. So I'll be messing around, being myself when we're in the green room or hanging out in our dressing rooms. But as soon as I get backstage, I kind of have to just close my eyes and take a couple breaths and just like get into whatever character I'm supposed to be and step out of Libbie's shoes and get into the other shoes that I'm supposed to be in.
Mm-hmm.
The last play that I did right before this virus hit was a show called The Bare Truth in Fort Pierce, Florida, written by a man named H.G. Brown. And he was really, really wonderful. He was also our director. And the character I played was Terry. And she pretty much is exactly like me in real life. So that was really fun because I felt like I didn't really have to get into character. I kind of just had to remember my lines and say them however I would say them because it was a comedy. and it was just a very realistic show. It was like a sitcom almost, and that was kind of fun because I feel like I didn't really have to get into character. But I played have you ever heard of the show The Crucible
Mm-hmm.
by Arthur Miller? Yeah, I played a girl named Susanna Walcott, and she was really quiet, and people were thinking she was a witch and this and that. So that was a hard one to get into because I'm very outspoken and loud and fun, and I like laughing, and I had to get into like a very quiet, depressing, trying, this girl's hiding a secret kind of feel. And so I would be backstage and I would just kind of close my eyes and try to get into that and tune into that.
Have you ever had a major forgetting of line while performing in front of an audience, or accident where you fell over a prop or anything like that?
I have a really funny story that just reminded me. That last show that I was in, when I was in the dressing room, I was talking to everybody and I was lotioning my arms and my legs. Just, I'm a woman, like that's what we do. And I put lotion on my feet, which is like a weird thing to say. And then I put on my shoes because I was about to go out on stage, and I was literally slipping and sliding in my shoes because they were like I don't even know how to describe them, just kind of like flats. But my feet were so like moisturized, I was like slipping and sliding. And when I was on stage, I like slid out of my shoe and I kind of had to just drag it off stage with me to put it back on. Because literally I'm standing there and my shoe is just like off my foot. And I'm just like, okay, hopefully nobody will notice because I'm not talking right now. So everyone's looking at the people who are talking. And I'm just like, like it was so embarrassing, but I'm not sure if anybody really noticed.
Okay, that's not too bad though. That's not too
Yeah,
bad.
no, other than that, there was a couple moments where I had to try to pick up other people, but I'm going to knock on wood here. Other than that, I have not had any moments where I forgot my lines. But there was one in the Slash show that I was in. There's a part where I'm in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden this girl storms in and interrupts us, and she does her thing. Well, I'm in the middle of talking, and I'm waiting for this girl to storm in, and so we can change the conversation and continue with the play, and she doesn't come. And there's nothing else to say because my next line is like, oh, what are you doing here? And there's nobody there. So the other woman I was with on stage were just kind of standing there looking at each other. And I was like, do you hear that? And she looks at me. I was like, I'm going to go check the door. I feel like I hear knocking. And then that's when I like went backstage where the quote unquote door was. And I literally took her and yanked her onto the stage. And I was like, what are you doing here? And then we got to continue. But I kind of had to improv just think about, okay, how can I get her on stage? Because she clearly does not remember that this was the moment where she was supposed to walk on stage.
Oh, good job.
That was, yeah. Oh, I was very, very proud on that one because I kind of just froze up for a second and was like, all right, how do I get her on stage?
Nice.
Definitely patted myself on the back for that one.
I directed a play in college, and the final night performance, at the end of the show, of course, they say their last lines and the lights go down, and the lighting person missed the cue, and so they say their last lines, and the actors just kind of freeze on stage. And I was, of course, sitting in the audience because I directed it, and they freeze on stage for a moment when the lights are supposed to go down, and then nothing happens. So then they start just improvising this random stuff. And I imagine it would have been hilarious because you would see me sitting in the middle of the audience, jump up, run down the row, run down the aisle, up the stairs, and then just into the lighting room where I'm just like, turn off the fucking lights.
You're like, come on. That the audience doesn't know what's happening, but for everybody who's involved and knows what's supposed to happen, it's like a moment of, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah, totally. That's it. And it's just the actors are just like, okay, we'll just keep improvising until the lights go down. But I'm sure it looked hilarious, just this random person jumping up from the audience and running down the aisles. But yeah, she felt really bad afterwards.
Of course.
Okay, so you apparently are good at accents according to your profile. Is this true?
Well, I would like to think that I can do a bit of accents. My family's from England, so I like to talk like this a bit. But other than a British accent, I'm still working on my other ones. But I definitely like to do a little bit of a British accent. I'm hoping to be cast in something where I can talk like that a little bit.
Good job, though. You were able to jump into that right quickly.
Oh, thank you very much. I've had a lot of practice.
I'm quite terrible at my British accent, which is really bad because I live in London, and I often
That is quite embarrassing. Yeah, I wouldn't do that out in public.
And they're like, "Can you do a British accent?" And I'm like, "No."
And I totally like to do like a Valley Girl accent, or I talk like this all the time. And sometimes I get so into it that I really can't stop. I like doing that.
How about Spanish?
Sí, yo puedo hablar español, pero necesito practicar.
Oh, that's just speaking in Spanish. That doesn't count. You live in Florida. 90% of the population speaks Spanish in Florida.
I just learned kind of Spanish on my own. Um, I can do a Spanish accent because like I can speak Spanish, but like a Spanish American accent is kind of hard to do.
Mm.
I wouldn't even know what to say.
No worries.
I'm
I'll
not
put you on
really
the
sure
spot
what to say. Yeah. Like I just recently started doing I work at a restaurant, a French American traditional restaurant, and I was doing the teleprompter for when people call us, like or not the teleprompter, but like the phone call when people call us, what they hear. And my boss wanted me to do it in a French accent. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really do French accents, but here we go. And it sounds a little bit like this. Thank you for calling, or thank you for calling Citron Bistro. This is Libby speaking. We are now open Monday through Sunday, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And like we were going back and forth, like doing this. And I was like, no, 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 that's terrible. So she ended up doing it. We ended up doing it in my British accent. I was like trying so hard. I was like, I don't even know if I've ever met a French person in my life.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, yeah,
It definitely needs some work.
yeah. I think your French people might catch it, but for the
Yeah,
non-French,
exactly. They'd be like, what the heck is that?
I just like how your manager's like, "Hey, you're an actress. Do this in an accent."
Exactly. That's literally what they do. And then one of my other coworkers wanted me to do it in one of my character voices. He wanted me to talk with like thank you for calling Citron Bistro. This is Libby speaking. Like doing like this like ridiculous, just like Sylvester the cat kind of voice. And I was like, we are not doing that ever. Like that sounds so ridiculous.
That's good though.
But yeah, just doing little accents. Everyone, I'm literally like the muse. Everyone just is like, do this, do it this way, do it that way. And I'm like, I'm busy right now. I'm trying to make the schedule. Like, leave me alone.
That's fun to do with people, though. There's an actress here in London, and she's good at accents, and so I did that to her one time, and we're just chatting, and I'm like, okay, now do Irish, and she would just
Yeah.
jump into Irish, and I'm like, okay, now do this, and she'd jump into it, and I was so impressed with like her ability to jump into it, and it was sounded like spot on.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's where I hope to be one day. I don't think that I'm there quite yet, but I do like talking in my British accent. Sometimes I get a little carried away and I can't get out of it.
It's not bad though. You said your family's British then? Do they speak with an accent?
My grandma did. Unfortunately, my grandma did pass away about a year ago, but she
Mm,
lived down here in Florida with me. I moved down here to kind of hang out with her and be closer to her because she was really cool. But my mom was born in England. She moved over here when she was like 16. And so
mm,
she has lost her accent, as did her brothers, but my grandma still had hers.
mm.
And I have a lot of family over in England that comes to visit and stuff. So just by talking to her and hearing her talk, I just kind of got into it. And I would say something and she would be like, no, 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 say it this way. And she was like, that sounds very posh. You know, you want to say it this way because they were from like Southern England and she was just giving me little lessons on how to say things in an English accent.
Yeah, it's weird for a country that is the size of like Michigan, how many dialects there are to the accent.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
crazy. Whereas the US is very large, and most people in the US speak with a pretty similar accent.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, the US is so large, but such a tiny portion of it, like the west end of Long Island slash like Brooklyn and the Bronx, they tend to talk like this. Like they talk like this. They're gonna go walk the dog and drink their coffee and go on the beach and like they talk like this. And it's like I don't even know how to describe that accent. It's just kind of like a Brooklyn, Bronx, like Long Island accent. And whenever I meet people and say that I'm from Long Island, they always say, "Why don't you have an accent?"
Mm.
And I'm like, this is my accent. I'm talking normally, but like certain people on the island, they talk like that. And I find that very interesting because I feel like nowhere else in the country talks like that.
Yeah, that's good though. You were able to jump into it quick.
Yeah, I have a lot of practice. I grew up over there and I heard people talk like that and it was very annoying. I tended to be very annoyed by that accent.
Like, I will not talk like you.
Yeah. Sometimes if I'm at my job, I'll answer the phone and I'll all of a sudden get into like this sweet Southern charmer accent, and I'm just like, um, How are you doing today, darling? Oh, you're doing really good. Oh, that's good. And like, I'll just like be all of a sudden like Southern and sweet. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not from down here. Why am I doing that? Thanks so much, y'all. It's been a wonderful day.
That's a good way to keep training with it, though, is use it at work.
Yeah,
Use it in every
just do
day.
that. And then they're like, didn't you just talk like normally 5 seconds ago? And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know who I am nowadays. It's the funniest thing. A little Southern twang.
How do you keep training and kind of keep working on your performing skills?
Just like, when it comes to voiceover acting, it's still very new to me and I'm still just getting into it, although I love it very much. But like I said, like I'll be at work and I'll literally just like get into a character and just start talking like somebody else, and then I can't stop. And then people hear it and they think it's funny, so they'll be like, "Oh, talk like this again, talk like this, and do that, and do this." And like I get at work very often, I'll have my friends kind of like come up to me and just ask me to speak in different ways. But when I'm home, I was home a lot during this little quarantine thing. I was still working, but had a lot of time off. I followed a lot of people who are voiceover actors on Instagram, and I just started studying their demo reels, and I would hear them say something, and I would try my best to mimic it exactly and kind of just echo everything that I heard. And it's nothing that I can kind of pick up and remember right now, but just little things here and there. I would hear someone say something a certain way, and I would just do it myself. And if I didn't sound right the first time, I would keep at it and just like try to sound like them. I feel like that's like a weird thing to do, but that's definitely been working for me, and just learning how to talk differently and try to sound like a little girl, try to sound like an old lady, try to sound like an old man. Like I was like doing just kind of voice exercises and copying people, just trying to expand my ability, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's good. With stage, do you have a system for memorizing your lines?
I will read through the whole play at least one time, and then I will break it down into little sections. And what I like to do is I will record in like the voice memos on my phone. I will record scenes, but I will only record what the other people that I'm talking to are saying. And when it's my turn to say something, I'll keep it blank. And when I'm recording it, I'll kind of just mouth the words so that I know how long that blank space, that silence needs to be. And so what I do is I listen to those voice memos while I'm reading my script. So when I'm studying my script. So, you know, I'll hear the other people's lines and then I'll get used to saying my lines. And then in that case, when you do that, you learn not only everybody's lines, but for me personally, it's just easier because you hear your cue lines. And if you don't hear your cue line, you still know what the entire scene is going to be, so you can kind of manipulate it. So if someone messes up their line, you can bring it back because you know that entire scene.
Yeah, that's good because a lot of people they memorize their lines, but when you don't know the other person's lines, if something gets missed, you have a hard
Exactly.
time recovering from it, or maybe you miss the cue. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that happens very often. So when you learn that whole scene and you kind of like, it sounds like show offy, like, yeah, I know the entire play, but the way that I study, I do. It's just one of those memory things. I'm constantly hearing my own voice say everybody's lines because I'm listening to it. So when we get in that moment of someone forgetting a line, they're dropping a line, they jump a line, whatever the case may be, I really kind of pride myself on being the one to be able to bring it back because that's just the way that it works for me to be able it makes me feel very comfortable and confident on stage when I know everybody's lines and I know the whole play and the whole scene how it's supposed to go. As soon as it goes off, I can kind of reel it back in because I know where it's supposed to go, because there's nothing worse than when someone drops a line and no one else knows what to say and there's just silence and the audience is like, all right, like
Yeah.
it's very embarrassing. So that happened in the first play that I did when I moved down to Florida. And To Kill a Mockingbird, I was being interrogated on stage by this man, and he kept asking the same question like 4 times. He asked me how old I am because he couldn't move on and he couldn't remember his line. And so I kind of just brought him back in, and I was like, "You already asked me that. Don't you want to ask me this?" And I like kind of brought him back to where he needed to be. And then the play was able to continue. And ever since that moment, I was like, yeah, I need to do this from now on. Like, it was so terrifying to be up there and like just have him repeat himself and not really know what to do.
Yeah. Suddenly everybody starts sweating profusely.
Profusely. Like I was freaking out. There's only like 250 people staring at me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, okay. So ever since that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try to learn it all
Good. That's great.
when you can. At least when I'm on stage, you know. When I'm not there, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
You're on your own, suckers.
Have you gone out for a musical ever?
Oh yes. I was in a funny thing happened on the way to the forum and
Mm,
I loved it. Have you heard of that?
I have. I've never seen it, but I know of it. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. I mean, it's a really, really funny show. I did it down here at the Vero Beach Theater Guild, and I was a character named Panacea. And that was really fun because I didn't have a role where I had these crazy solos on stage, but I had a role where I was constantly singing and singing in small groups. So it is still kind of nerve wracking because you don't, especially when you audition, you literally just have to sing in front of a ton of people that you've never met before. But I really, really loved it. I would love to be in another musical, but that is the only musical I have under my belt
Mm.
nowadays. I did a few in high school, but I feel like those don't count because they were more than 10 years ago.
I've never gone for a musical. And do they do a musical accompaniment, or is it just you solo on the stage?
Um, Both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. For my audition for this one, they had said you needed to obviously sing for your audition, but I was under the impression you would have to sing a song from the musical we were auditioning for. So I like studied a few of the songs and I went with one and I literally like studied it so hard and I kept singing it. And then I get there and people were singing like Happy Birthday. People were singing the song from The Little Mermaid.
Sorry. So
And
people were
I was
singing
like,
happy
wait,
birthday?
yeah, that was literally their audition piece was singing Happy Birthday and they got it.
No.
And I was like, okay, I just spent weeks learning a few of these songs. I tried so hard and I was so upset. Like I was like, if I don't get this role, I just learned all these songs for nothing. Um, so when I went up there, I was like, I wasn't aware that we could do that. So I actually prepared a piece called Lovely, which is, in this musical. And I sang it. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, that was lovely." And I think they really liked that is because I like did my research on the play, and I expressed which songs that I wanted to sing because I sang them for my audition. But yeah, I ended up getting that, and that was such a fun play. Like possibly my favorite.
Oh, that's
I got
cool.
to wear the prettiest dress and a huge, beautiful wig. My makeup was like crazy. Like it was just one of those really glamorous roles that you think about when you think of theater. So it was really fun.
Nice. Yeah, I would imagine from a director's point of view, if you have somebody coming up there and they actually researched and did one of the songs from the play and somebody's doing Happy Birthday, you'd probably be more inclined to go with, unless you were really terrible, go with the person that actually researched a song from the play.
Exactly. So yeah, looking forward, I think I would continue to do that just because I feel like it can't hurt to show. It's like being a teacher's pet. It's like, ooh, look at me. Like I learned the song for this, but also whatever, like whatever gets you the role. So I would definitely say if you're auditioning for a musical, try to do your research and at least get comfortable with the music in case that's what they want.
With the majority of the plays you've done, do they have you do a prepared monologue, or is it going up and reading from the actual play?
It's reading from the actual play. From a lot of the ones that I auditioned for, everybody gets a script and they kind of just call you up. They will do a scene where there's 5 or 6 characters in the scene and they just kind of assign you to a random character. Or if there's a specific character that you want, you can do that. And then they might, the next round, they'll have you audition for somebody else. And they just want to see your range. They want to see if you can be other people.
Mm.
But it's always been an excerpt for that. I have not had to audition with a monologue piece yet, but I do have a monologue under my belt waiting for that moment to happen. I've got this really cool monologue called No Place Like Oz, and it's about Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz after she gets back to Kansas. And it was this monologue I found once, and I just learned it because I thought it was so cool. So I am waiting for that to happen one day.
One of these days, they'll just be like randomly like, "Do you have a monologue you could do?" And you could be like, "Yes."
Yes, like I'm waiting for that moment. Yeah, because right now, because all of the theaters are closed down right now, I'm doing with one of my theaters, they're doing a digital theater. So they would, cast us, certain directors would cast you in a script. They'll send it to you and then they choose a date for us to record it on Zoom. And we literally do it like a staged reading of whatever they cast you in. And on that note, with this theater on Mondays, they also do this thing called Monologue Mondays, where you send them monologue videos of yourself and then they post it for whoever follows the theater to see. So I did get to showcase that monologue there, which was kind of fun. I at least got something to do with it. I got to use it somewhere.
Well, that's good. Okay, last question. Where can people track you down if they need to find you? Social media or whatever?
Social media would be perfect. I have an Instagram. My acting, theater voiceover work Instagram is Libbie's Voice, LIBBIESVOICE. I made that one kind of recently. And then you could, of course, always follow my personal Instagram, which is at Libbie Baylinson, LIBBIE BAYLINSON. I'm really, really active on there. And if anyone ever saw anything that they liked or wanted to cast me anything just based on my demos or anything that I posted, they could click email on the Instagram and it would take you right to my personal email at Gmail where they could, inquire about anything. So I feel like that is the best bet.
Perfect. Well,
Yes.
great. Thank you for being on the podcast. That was fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Any excuse to just talk.
Well, that's great. I love sometimes doing these podcasts, I really kind of have to, stretch to draw the person out sometimes. And then other times people are just like, love to talk. And I barely get a word in edgewise. And it's interesting difference between the two.
I know, right? Yeah, but I have never had that problem. I've always been way too talkative. So
I'd rather have that.
Yeah, I think so too. It's fun. Never a dull moment.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Milo. It's been fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.